Welcome to Know Your Balls podcast, a sports podcast here presented by Tonique Media. I'm Carr-Gloth with you as always with my co-host Robbie Williams. What's up?
You cut out on me for a second. Sorry. I was like, I don't want to talk before he finishes, but yeah. No. I'm guessing you asked me how I'm doing. I'm doing great, as always. I woke up in a bit of a panic this morning. I thought we were doing this like an hour earlier, and I was just looking too far back in the group chat. So I think I know my balls a little bit better today.
You can't come on this show without knowing your balls, Robbie. That's step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. Quickly, we want to thank Tell ABQ. Shout out to them. Albuquerque, New Mexico, all the good folks at Tell ABQ. Thank you so much for showing our podcast on your station. Also, please subscribe to Tonique Media wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify channel is really popping off recently, so make sure you cover that base. And you can also listen to it on Tell ABQ on radio station if you're in the great city of Albuquerque, New Mexico. An impressive slate on the schedule today. Obviously, it's March, so we'll get to March Madness. NFL free agency is its own version of March Madness. We'll talk about a bunch of different moves that we think are the best and worst. And also, the NBA trade deadline is approaching. A lot of moving pieces in a very short amount of time over the next week. And also some really uncomfortable disparities between the treatment of the men's and women's college teams. We'll get to that towards the end. But Robbie, first, NFL free agency, and I know both of us have been following it, pretty closely. There's a lot of action early, a lot of unexpected teams. Way of like first few days.
Well, Andy Dalton to the Chicago Bears, I think was a big deal. I think that's going to change things for sure there. Like he's, not an elite quarterback, but I think he's just what they need. It'll be interesting though to see if there's any competition between him and Nick Foles. I kind of feel like they're going to end up, going with Andy Dalton, but the Red Rocket, he's got that name for a reason, and they definitely needed somebody to get in there and do a lot better at the quarterback position after the cluster fudge that was the Mitchell Trubisky escapades.
I mean, look, I like the move, but I think Bears fans are not going to look at it as a good move because this was available to them last offseason, right? Like he was released by the Bengals because they were going to draft Joe Burrow, and then went from that to signing with the Cowboys. Like Dalton would have been just fine of an addition, way better of an addition than trading for Nick Foles and the massive contract that he's had. I mean, and also Mitchell Trubisky, that whole situation, he's signing with the Bills, but he at least like won games for them. Like I feel like he was worthy of maybe at least a 5th-year option that they could have exercised. It was a lot of money, so I understand the cons of it. But I mean, this move that for Dalton specifically was there for the year before. The quarterback market was kind of wild. The Saints double dipped there too. So again, in this carousel of or this offseason of quarterback carousel rather, I think Dalton was fine, but they could have had it last year.
Yeah. Now you're talking about double dipping in New Orleans. I thought it was interesting that they signed back both Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill's got the 4-year, $140 million deal. I don't know if it's not guaranteed 140. It's like
no, I don't know how much of it's guaranteed, but
there was something funny about that contract I read about. I can't remember right now.
a lot of it is not guaranteed.
Yeah. But I thought that was interesting that Taysom Hill got the bigger, longer contract. Considering Jameis Winston was a former Heisman Trophy winner, and he's had his problems with interceptions, but he's got a good arm. And he seems to be getting a little bit better year to year. But I you know I think they're going to end up starting Taysom Hill. Honestly, from just from the looking at the money and what they did last year, they didn't start Jameis Winston when Drew Brees went out. So
Yep.
that's a really interesting situation there.
Yeah, I'm more surprised that they brought back both of them. Like I can understand obviously you're probably going to bring back at least one of them, but to bring back both of them, I mean it seemed like Taysom was the guy that they wanted. They started him over Winston. There was reports I remember at the time that Saints players weren't so happy about it. They started winning games with Hill, so I guess it was fine in the long run. But I mean, the fact they're bringing both back is the real surprise for me. And again, I think there were other. I think if you're, I think there were other teams that would have loved to have Jameis Winston on their roster, like you said. Like, yeah, he does have that ceiling. He has a pretty high floor. Also, he can throw touchdown passes, throwing a lot of yards. A lot of people linked him to going to Houston. That didn't happen, but Tyrod Taylor went to Houston though, and so I mean, there's like a whole mess. Basically, that's the takeaway. There's a whole mess at quarterback right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the only reason I can think is that they want like an insurance policy slash a little bit more versatility. I think you'll see Jameis Winston come in. Um, even if Taysom Hill's not injured, because they were doing that even a little bit last year. They would throw Taysom Hill in and take Drew Brees out, and I think they would even throw Jameis Winston in when Drew Brees wasn't injured for a play or two. And it just kind of depends on the plays they're running. And then you also got to consider, Taysom Hill's a very physical player, and so his chance of injury is, greatly increased compared to a typical pocket passer. So I think it's kind of an insurance deal for them because I think they really think they can, make it to the Super Bowl next year, and they don't want anything interfering with that.
All right, so having said all that, the quarterback, and try to like exclude it if you can, like give me three moves that were made that you really did not like. That when you looked at it, for one reason or another, you didn't like the fit, you didn't like the contract, you didn't like the guaranteed money, like you didn't like the timing of it. Like give me three signings that you didn't have a good feeling about.
That's a tough question. I'm not a very picky guy. I'm usually pretty optimistic. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about people.
Well, come on,
I can't really think of any. I'm not gonna lie. I can't really think of anything where I was just like off the top of my head, something I was like, man, I can't believe they did that. You know, uh, I guess you got Bud Dupree. He tore his ACL last year. That's a risky move. 5 year, $82 million deal. That's um, that could be
it's
a
a
tough
lot.
injury to keep. It can happen again and again. It's one of those things. And so, but three, you want me to give you three? Oh, geez. You really put me to the test
Come
every
on,
week.
you're
I sit
really
here, man, and I do my research and I watch games, and then I come here and I'm like,
you're telling
I
me
don't know
you didn't see
nothing.
a single contract or a move this offseason? You were like, I'm not sure if I like that for them.
Well, do you have some? It sounds like you got something you want to get off your chest.
No, I don't. I mean, there are contracts that I thought like were a little bit much, and I think that there were moves that were bad moves. Like, of course, it's every free agent offseason. For example, Cincinnati, they signed Trey Hendrickson. Okay, and Hendrickson had a great year last year. But the Saints, or not the Saints, sorry, the Bengals, they gave him a 4 year, $60 million deal. 32 of that is guaranteed. 32 million. So that's most of the contract is guaranteed, and like they're paying him to be like this top notch guy at defensive end. He's only played at that level for one season. I'm not saying he can't do it, but he's only done it for one season. And he's been a fine player up until then, but he's had like that he's played at that contract's level for one season. So they're banking on him
Yeah,
to
I
do
get
that
what you're
again
saying.
over the next 4
He's got
years, and they're committing a lot of money to it.
13 tackles in 2017, 8 tackles in 2018, 19 tackles in 2019. And then last year he just put up 13 and a half sacks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's more than he's got 20 total sacks his entire career. And
Mhm.
13 and a half of them came last year. So I see what you're saying, but also, how bad would you feel if you let a guy like that slip by and he continues to play at that level? It's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it takes a
That's what the
bit
Saints are
to
banking
start
on, I
start
guess.
going. They're banking he's gonna
He's not gonna live up to
he's
that
gonna keep going.
contract. That's what they're banking on.
Well, there must be something going on in the locker room, I guess, that they just were like, you know what? Nope, he's not a good fit anymore. We don't think he's gonna keep playing like that. I don't know exactly what I would like to know why they think he's not gonna keep playing like that. Just it's just a fluke. Um 13 and a half sacks is a pretty big fluke.
That's what again, though, the Bengals, I don't blame them necessarily for having to dole out this kind of money because pass rushers, especially, were there was a scarcity of pass rushers, top notch pass rushers, and he was a free agent at the right time, I believe. And the Bengals really needed to address that. They lost Carl Lawson going to the Jets, so I mean, I understand it to a degree. Um, but I mean, Robbie, like there are no moves you saw and were like you can't think of one? Give me
Well,
one.
let's see here. We got AJ Green to the Cardinals.
Mhm.
I mean, he's what was his contract here? I forgot.
1 year,
Uh
8 million.
1 year, 8 million. You know, it's not great. I don't think it's terrible though. I'm not getting upset about it. Like I don't know.
It's not I
I
didn't say
think
it's
they
bad.
needed they needed more than, DeAndre Hopkins out there every play, and they need to diversify their offense as far as a running game and more passing options. Um, take some of the heat off of Kyler Murray, but it's not terrible. It's I hear a lot of flack about that, but you know, he's still a
Ye
great player. He's just
uh,
not as good as he used to be.
yeah, he just hasn't been a great player in a while. Like, he
Yeah,
made the Pro Bowl in, I think, each of his first 7 seasons, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, it's not like you have a top 5 quarterback throwing to him. He had Andy Dalton throwing to him, and he had some pretty good years in Cincinnati. I'll admit that. I think he went to the Pro Bowl at least once. But Andy Dalton throwing you the football for 7 straight years, and you go to the Pro Bowl. Like, you could build an offense around AJ Green, like in his early days. He torched my Cleveland Browns all the time, and so I mean, I like this signing actually. I like this a lot. It's I'd say it's pretty low risk and really high reward. If you get anything like AJ Green of the past, then I mean that whew, like
that's what
him
I'm
and
saying. It's worth
DeAndre
a
Hopkins.
flyer. Like you could end up eating your words on it and be like, oh, he had another bummer season, but we've seen what he can do, like you said, and if you can get a little bit of that coming around, then that's a game changer. Especially when you're dealing with you know arguably the best receiver in football, lining up next to you. So,
Mm.
um, what else we got? People are talking about Shaquille Griffin to the Jacksonville
Oh yeah,
Jaguars.
a lot of
You know,
money.
a lot of money. They had a lot of money though. So it's one of those things where it's like I think they really
That's
need
true.
a lot of improvement all the way around. And when I'm playing Madden and I turn off the salary cap, I just outbid every team. I'll give everybody $1 billion because I'm not trying to play the bidding war.
Oh,
So if you got it, I mean,
Matt GMs, yeah.
why not?
Griffin got 3 years. It's worth up to 45 million, 29 million guaranteed. That's going to be a pretty. I think it's going to be a significant loss for the Seahawks. That's for sure. And our guy Jacob and his Seahawks continue to hear things about Russell Wilson. Again, back to Andy Dalton real quick. The reason that the Bears went ahead and signed Andy Dalton is because they threw the book at Seattle to try to get Russell Wilson, and they didn't. They held firm. So I think it's pretty strong inclination that Russell Wilson's going to stay there. I just want to throw that in. Before we get to some really good moves, there's one team in particular that made just a ton of moves. The New England Patriots and free agency.
Watch out.
Watch out indeed. Not two things you really associate with one another. They hand out more than $150 million in guarantees. $150 million in guarantees, and it's been like less than a week.
Bill Belichick's not playing. He's not
they're not-
playing. He didn't like last season, man. He said, "All right, open up the checkbook." This is
they
ridiculous.
have the cash. They're going to spend it. Cam Newton re-signing on a one-year deal. They got some weapons in the receiving corps. Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. They signed 2 tight ends, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. They
That was
traded for
crazy.
offensive
I mean,
tackle.
you're
That was
signing
crazy.
2 top-tier tight
2
ends.
top-tier tight ends. They also traded for offensive tackle Trent Brown. They signed center David Andrews. They signed a couple of guys in the D-line, most notably Henry Anderson, also David Godchow. I think that's how you say his name. He was with the Dolphins. Dietrich Wise Jr. also big signing. Matthew Judon. They brought back Kyle Van Noy. So I mean, they signed Nick Folk. Like Jalen Mills, also formerly of the Eagles. They signed him to a big deal. Just so many guys that the Patriots are bringing in, plucking from other teams. Like, wow! I got to tell you, did not see that coming.
Yeah, no, that was I didn't either. I thought that was I liked every move though. I like what they're doing, and
Well, you liked every move in general.
Yeah, in general, I guess I got really specific. Maybe I could start nitpicking, but I mean, with that happening, I mean that totally changes the way I see the NFC East, right, or North, or AFC. I'm sorry, AFC North, right, or East.
The Patriots are in the AFC East.
East. Okay, my bad. Yeah, the North is Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, right? Okay. Yep, I'm getting confused. Just in New England, so far north, you would think, but
also so far east.
It is it's pretty far east too. But I don't see him winning the division over Buffalo with all these moves.
No chance. Buffalo's still.
But I see them in the wild card with all these moves. 110%. I see them in the wild card.
You still think they could draft a quarterback? They might.
I mean, I think you kind of have to, don't you? I mean, Cam Newton's not. You signed him 1 year.
1 year deal.
And you're not. And even if you signed him to 10, he's not going to stick around for 10. So you gotta start thinking of filling that position at some point. And the way the QB market is in the free agency right now, you gotta start looking at drafting here. And with all these picks or with all these free agent signings, they're not going to have as good of a draft pick next year after Cam Newton's done. I mean, maybe they'll sign him again next year depending on how the season goes. But
it's a good quarterback class.
It'd be exactly. It'd be good to get the rookies' feet wet a little bit. I think the longer you wait on solving an issue that is coming up like that, the more you're going to pay for it for sure.
Well, there were a ton of other moves that went down as well, and there were a lot of moves that when I saw them, I was like, yes. One most notably was the Lions re-signing Romeo Okwara. I thought that was a big signing.
We were talking about that
they
last
need that
week.
pass rusher.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that and Michael Brockers we got from the Rams. We're just bringing all the Rams over. Just keep them coming.
They traded. I think the Lions traded like a 6th or 7th round pick.
2023 7th round.
Yeah, that's nothing. Like that's a great
take it.
Great
this
trade.
guy. I mean, this guy. Let's see. let's just go. I'm going to go back on my Ndamukong Suh hate right now. Ndamukong Suh
Oh
had
man, come on! You don't
43.
have to do it.
I'm doing it because Ndamukong Suh is so great. He deserves all this money now.
Oh
43
man.
tackles, 16-6, 6 sacks last year. Okay.
Oh boy.
Michael Brockers, 51 tackles, 30 assists, 5 sacks. So we've moved on. We're doing better than you and Ndamukong. I want to hate on Ndamukong Suh every episode.
Robbie, come on now.
I'll find a way
Don't
to
do
sneak
that.
him in there.
Don't do that to Ndamukong. Don't do that to my guy Sue. I love Ndamukong Suh. I love watching him play.
I like my old jersey I have of him because I changed it. I took duct tape and I put it across the back of my jersey, and I wrote Green Bay Sooks on the back of it.
Jesus.
So he's good for something. He's good for puns.
All right. Well, now that you got that out of the way,
Feels better.
we're gonna other signings that I thought were really good. Obviously, I got to talk about my Cleveland Browns signing John Johnson. Right? You want to talk about Rams coming over? John Johnson, the best safety in the secondary. Actually, he's John Johnson.
105 tackles last year.
3 years, $33.75 million. Most of that, I believe, is guaranteed. Fills a need. The Browns needed another safety. He's super versatile. I personally love everything about this move. And it's also a hedge that, just in case Grant Delpit doesn't turn out okay because he tore his Achilles. He was a second-round pick last year at LSU. He was out for the entire season, didn't even play a snap. In case he can't regain his form, this is also a great way to hedge that bet a little bit. And it was like the one big splash, and the Browns made it count. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that was a great move for sure. He's a great player. That's all you could say is he's an amazing player. And I love seeing the Browns. I know you love it because you're a big fan, but seeing the Browns get to a point where they are seriously a contender and they seem to be getting better every year and they're really putting a team together. They're not going backwards. And it's just nice to see. It gives me hope for the Lions one of these days.
I want to tell you two things. Number one, before we record today, I was watching Brown Steelers highlights of that playoff game because I can just do that because that video exists now. That's number one. That's number one, right? And number two, I got to tell you something else. Something that excited me as a Browns fan. Juju Smith-Schuster. He re-signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And
you think he's a little bit of toxicity in that locker room?
I know. I'm not
upset the whole thing.
I don't think he's toxic. I wouldn't use that word. First of all, I want to note he signed a 1-year, $8 million contract with the Steelers, and he had more money and more years from other teams: Kansas City, apparently Philadelphia, Baltimore. Imagine if he went to Baltimore. That would have been wild within the division as well. And Baltimore needed a receiver. All those teams needed a receiver. Imagine him going to Kansas City. He could have had Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback and made about the same, or if not more. And he chose to go back to Pittsburgh with Ben Roethlisberger for 1 year, $8 million. And I got to tell you, I am so excited as a Browns fan to get to play Juju Smith-Schuster again 2 more times because I think he'll forever be a lightning rod in Cleveland for really giving the Browns ultimate bulletin board material. And it excites me. I don't fear the Steelers anymore. I just don't. After the way that they thoroughly and utterly punched them in the face in the first quarter, I just don't fear them anymore. I just don't. I think they could still make the playoffs next year, and I think this signing is very generous to Pittsburgh. But I am
even if you don't fear him, I think
this.
you should respect him still a little bit. Those are some strong words for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who perennially have just come to ruin everybody's fun day.
I can't not respect the ass whooping that the Steelers have handed the Browns since they came back into existence in 1999. I think Ben Roethlisberger against the Browns is like the highest winning percentage against an opponent or at least top 5 in NFL history. I mean, obviously I respect it, but they've been Big Brother, and now they're not Big Brother. Like Big Brother, little brother had hit a growth spurt. Little
Yeah,
brother hit a
a
growth
big
spurt. He got
growth
a little.
spurt.
The Browns also signed Tack McKinley on the defensive end on a really 1-year, $4 million flyer. Malik Jackson, who was once a Pro Bowler in this league, defensive tackle. Anthony Walker on the Colts. I forgot before the show. I had to ask our guy AJ, big Colts fan. Apparently, every Colts fan, like on Twitter, says like Anthony Walker at linebacker is like the man. Darius Leonard, one of the elite linebackers in the league, was tweeting out something like that. Like every Colts fan and all these Colts players are apparently really sad to see him leave. I don't know much about him, but I'm excited to have him in Cleveland as a linebacker where the Browns need it. These are a lot of small outside of John Johnson. Oh, and we signed another cornerback Hill from the Rams as well. I'm blanking on his name right now. Troy Hill.
Yep.
4 years, $24 million, but only like $2 million of his guaranteed. Of course, I was going to turn this into a conversation about the Browns, but they're actually making great.
The Rams. I mean, let's go back. We've talked about quite a few Rams players who are great players who are not on the Rams anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like their roster is just getting pecked apart here by the free agency.
Well, they were also in cap hell. Like they had like super negative cap space, and they had to get rid of guys. That's why the Lions were able to get Brockers for like nothing.
Matthew Stafford can't get a break, man. That poor guy. I was all excited to watch him go there. I was like, oh, they're going to do great. I didn't think about all these losses
so
on the
much
defense. He's going to have to deal with a bad
Matthew
defense
Stafford hate
again.
now?
No.
I don't think so.
No. I root for Matthew Stafford till I die. Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
For me, all right, listen, I used to get bullied for being a Lions fan when I was in
Michigan.
elementary school. In Michigan. That's how bad
That's hilarious.
That is, I'm not kidding. Okay, like it was bad. I remember one time in second grade that there was like a game we were playing. There was prizes, whatever, and one of the prizes was a Lions poster. I didn't have to win anything to get it. Nobody wanted it, and it was all the players on that poster are utterly forgettable, and the poster's in the trash now. But Matthew Stafford changed that, and I will forever
be grateful for him. They were competent. They were in the playoffs. I understand. So wait,
first playoff game I've seen. So, but I'm just saying, all these losses on defense.
But still,
it's going to hurt them.
There's a guy named Aaron Donald. There's another guy named Jalen Ramsey.
Can't do it alone.
Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald are 2 of the top 3 defensive players in the league. Maybe top 5.
But they were playing with these guys.
I don't think
they were doing that too. I mean, it kind of. They're definitely. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say anything bad about either of those guys, but I think having a lot of other very good supporting players around you, it makes it harder for other teams to game plan on how to deal with Aaron Donald when you got Michael Brocker lining up next to him.
I forgot his name, but the defensive coordinator for the Rams, he also just got hired for the Chargers head coaching job. So I mean, it could fall apart. But again, you have 2 like ultra elite, maybe like probably the best at each of their positions for the last 5-7 years. I don't remember how long Ramsey's been in the league, but they have that potential to still be great. And I really I don't want to bet against those guys. But a couple other moves I wanted to mention. Obviously, I got to talk about some former Browns. Kevin Zeitler, offensive guard, signing with the Ravens. That hurts as a Browns fan, I'll tell you that. 3 years, $22 million. He's like just a really solidly good offensive guard. He plays right guard. He used to play for the Bengals, so now he's played on 3 teams in the AFC North.
That's interesting.
He's very interesting indeed. He's a great signing for Baltimore, keeping their offensive line. Alex Mack, former Browns draft pick, he signs a 1-year, $5.5 million deal to reunite with Kyle Shanahan, who he was with both in Cleveland and in Atlanta. San Francisco really beefing up their offensive line. Trent Williams, you saw that contract. Trent Williams Probably left tackle, probably best free agent on the market. Elite Hall of Fame caliber left tackle signs like a 6-year. I think it's in the $138 million range to stay with the 49ers.
It's a big deal. I'd definitely watch out for the 49ers next year because they're retaining a lot of what makes them good. And I mean, it was just those injuries last year were just absolutely insane. It's just a shame to watch a team that good just suffer for just anomalies like that. And they can stay healthy. You know, they're going
Watch
places
out,
for
yeah,
sure. Definitely help out Jimmy
yeah,
Garoppolo back there. Well, that'll be interesting to see the quarterback
yeah.
situation over there because Jimmy Garoppolo's never been completely confidently solidified as that guy. I'm blanking on his competitor over there,
For which position?
quarterback. Um, Nick Mullins. Is that his name?
Mullins, yeah, Mullins. I don't think he's competition though. They have too much money invested in Garoppolo, and I think they're further investing in the offensive line shows that he's going to stay there.
I
So
agree.
we'll see.
It's
Uh,
interesting.
there's a couple more moves I want to mention before we move on. Marlon Mack resigning with the Colts, a 1-year, $2 million deal. Really like that. That's a very doable contract for the Colts. Pairing him with Jonathan Taylor. Uh, I really like that combination. Colts, I think, are going to be really good next year. Ryan Fitzpatrick, also, we didn't mention him on our quarterback carousel. 1-year, $10 million deal with Washington. I think Washington wants to start over at quarterback. I think they're going to draft somebody probably, even though they also re signed Taylor Heineke after having a great playoff game. But I think, at least for this year, they want competence at quarterback, and I think can give them Alex Smith like play. He had great play for the Dolphins last year. I think at times played better than Tua. So I like this signing for Washington. Just hold it down another year. Fitzpatrick can still play. 1 year, $10 million. So I like that signing. And then also one real quick thing about your Lions. Forgot to mention Michael Brockers getting traded to the Lions. He's reunited with quarterback Jared Goff. So
I think it's
bring him
interesting.
in.
I didn't know he said this. Just reading this now after before when they first traded Stafford, or traded Goff
Mhm,
for Stafford, he said, "Is adding Stafford a level up?" Question mark.
mhm.
Um, and now he's
Yeah.
back with his boy Goff. So I thought that was interesting. That
Oh boy.
apparently I don't think that things are going well over there in the Rams organization, and I'm going to go back to feeling bad for Matt Stafford on that because that just shows a lot. Um, I think Stafford is a level up
Yep.
for sure, but you know, I get what he's saying.
No doubt.
Goff has been underrated, I think, or at least underappreciated for what he did over there
That Lions optimism. We love to see that Lions optimism. Let's go. It's hope springs eternal in Detroit, Michigan, ladies and
every
gentlemen.
year.
Before we every year, before we go on, I just want to take a quick second again to thank the good folks over at Tell ABQ. We appreciate everything they do for us and for lots of Tonique. Switching gears now, uh, we have less than a week now until the NBA trade deadline, and at this point, I think NBA teams know what they have or what they don't have in their team. I think at this point, you have some trends that are going to stick with you throughout the rest of the season. Um, Buyers and sellers at the NBA trade deadline, I think, is going to be interesting this year because I don't think there are going to be as many sellers with the expanded potential playoff play-in from the seeds 1 through 10 now have a shot at the playoffs. 9 versus 10 to if whoever finishes the season 9 versus 10, they have to win that game, and then the loser. Actually, no, I believe it's 8 versus 9. The loser plays 10. I mixed that up. But regardless, there's more playoff teams available, so I think there aren't going to be as many sellers. What do you think of the teams that will try to move assets at the deadline, Robbie?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that definitely changes the trade scenarios. with adding those extra playoff teams, and I like it a lot that they're doing that. I like these playing games. I think that's really interesting. Seems to be a trend across uh, professional sports or large sports in general. But um, you know, uh, I'm blanking a little bit here on who needs what. Not gonna lie.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll
I
tell
had
you
all my
what.
football stuff up in front of me, and I was like scrambling to get to the other page.
I'll tell you what. There are definitely teams that are buyers this year that I think in a normal year they wouldn't necessarily be. Toronto, for example, they have hit a slump. They have,
My
as of
Pistons beat them the other night, and they weren't looking
yeah,
too
that
good.
that was bad.
It was
That was
bad.
bad. As of this recording, they're 17-24. They're currently on a 7-game losing streak. However, I don't think they're going to be selling off their assets. I know Kyle Lowry's been in a lot of trade conversations. I don't think he's going to get moved. I think that they were linked to trading for Andre Drummond. If that trade's still going to happen, sheesh.
Yeah,
But
Andre Drummond is just
Toronto, I
playing.
think, right?
Yeah, what do you
Oh,
call it?
that's
I don't want to say ping pong. What? Oh my god! Why can't I think of the game with the buttons on the side?
that like every game.
Pinball. I can't
Pinball.
get ping pong out of my head. Pinball.
Ping pong, jeez.
Gotta know
So
your
the
balls.
Cavs and Andre
Jesus.
Drummond are playing pinball. Yeah,
Yeah, he's playing
pinball.
pinball around the league. He's going from
How so?
he's always on the move. It seems he
He's
can't
played
find a
on
good
2
home.
teams. He's played on 2 teams in his NBA career.
Yeah, but he's moved. This will be the second move in what, like 3
This will be
years
the
or something?
second move in a year, basically.
There you go. Yeah, pinball.
Um,
I
I
mean, we've
again,
only hit the ball twice with the pin, but you know,
well,
it's a
I'll tell
lot.
you
I think
this.
it's a lot to move twice in 1 year.
It definitely is. I think he can still play. His contract is over $28 million, so I think the Cavs have to take in something like $22 million back. I think every day that gets closer to the deadline, it's going to become harder and harder to find a deal. I think he's going to get bought out. I don't see a trade formulating. There's been so many teams that have been linked to him. I can't even keep track anymore. So I would be happy to be wrong, but I'd be surprised. I'd really be shocked if a trade happened. And again, back to Toronto, they're in 11th place right now. If they get into that play-in tournament, they believe they could get in. So I think they're going to be a big buyer. I think a team that's going to I think one interesting team that is kind of in the middle are the Pelicans. And they definitely have some
They've had
pieces.
some tough losses to the
They
Portland
they
Trailblazers here the
oh,
past
that
couple
was
nights. I watched both those games.
tough loss.
It
Yeah.
was rough. I mean, they had the lead there, 17 points in the fourth quarter, and they blew it.
Mm,
Um,
yes.
I mean, Damian Lillard, what are you gonna do? But
Yeah, that was
uh,
bad as well. But
they're a young team. I think they could benefit from bringing in some older
oh yeah,
players here, just as like a veteran voice. Um, because obviously, I don't know, you lose your
well
composure. I think if you're
They
blowing a
have
17
JJ
point
Redick.
lead.
They have JJ Redick, if you want to count veterans, but he's the most likely guy to get moved, actually. So they have a veteran on the team who's been in the playoffs almost every year of his career except last year, and now he's probably going to get moved whether he gets bought out or traded. Also, Lonzo Ball, he's been linked a lot. He's one of those young players who's showed some good stretches this year. He has been linked to a lot of trade discussions as well. So that's I think the Pelicans still though want to find ways to add pieces for the future. I think if push comes to shove, they would rather retain some of their younger pieces rather than try to go for it this year because they know that there's so much room to grow between Ingram and Williamson.
Yeah, one name I can't ignore on our list here is Bradley Beal. I'm
Mm,
surprised to see. I just don't see them trading Bradley Beal. I mean, he's top
neither do
scorer in
I.
the NBA right now. I mean, he's he's amazing. Yeah, he's doing great. Him and Russell Westbrook playing off of each other. I mean, that's
They're not winning
it's
a lot
virtually
though.
Well,
They're not winning a lot.
they're plagued by injuries there. The beginning of the season, and I think they were showing a stat. I was watching the game the other night, and it was they were 2-14 um, without Beal, and then Beal came
Yeah,
back,
that's
and
ridiculous.
now they're 8-8 or 9-8 now, I think, um, with Beal back. And I mean,
Well,
I
as of
think they're
this
just getting into the
recording,
swing of things
th-
here. You know,
as of this recording, they're 15-25 as of this recording. That's bad. Like that's really bad. I think that's more than just a couple of players. Um, I think if they miss the playoffs this year, I think Scott Brooks gets fired if they miss the playoffs. I also think that Beal has said publicly, and apparently reports say privately, he still wants to be in Washington. So I think he's no doubt going to stay with the team at least through the season, especially with Russell Westbrook in town. They could still make the play-in again with the expanded possibility of playoffs. More teams are going to be buyers. But yeah, I don't think he's going to get traded. But I do. I think the next best option at that position, though, who I definitely think will be moved, is Victor Oladipo with Houston. They already offered him a 2-year extension, and the most amount of money they could offer, and he said no. And he's an upcoming free agent. He was a part of the James Harden trade. That's how he ended up in Houston. Apparently, Miami was linked to him for a while. I think he's going to be on the move because he's not going to come back to Houston. That's for sure. They're mixing everything up right now.
where do you see him going?
I don't know. I think someone like Miami is obviously a really top option there. I think if Denver doesn't believe that Michael Porter Jr. is their number 3 guy moving forward, I could see them trying to swing a big trade, Denver potentially, to try to get Oladipo. They'd have to make the salary cap work. The Knicks have wanted Oladipo since back when in his early days. There's a bunch of teams that are trying to buy now and get top quality guys. The Knicks, I believe they have a substantial amount of salary cap space. They always seem to. I mean, because no one's signing big contracts with them lately. But Victor Oladipo, the Knicks trade, I can see a scenario. The Knicks trade for him. He loves playing for Tom Thibodeau. He re-signs in the offseason because the Knicks can pay him what he wants. I think Victor Oladipo is definitely gonna get traded this before the deadline.
I like that Knicks scenario. I definitely like that Knicks scenario. That's
Yeah.
the I'm always rooting for the hard luck teams out there, you know, and are they still at 500? I remember they were celebrating in the streets
As
because
of
they
as
got to
of
the.
this as of this recording, the Knicks are 21-21, and they are 6th in the East.
I want to see them go
They're
22
they
and
are
21. I want to what?
what if I would you believe me if I told you that in late March, the Knicks would be ahead in the standings, ahead of Boston, ahead of Indiana, Toronto, and Washington. I
I'm gonna
mean,
sit here
people
and
thought
shake my
Washington would be
head.
good.
I wouldn't believe a word you said. If you started talking about the Knicks at the, a while back, I would have just started snoring and been like, "The
Yep.
Knicks? What are you talking about? You want to start talking about paint drying, or, you know?" The most
Yeah.
interesting thing about the Knicks has been, I think what's his name, Spike Lee, right? That's the
Spike
director.
Lee. Yeah.
You know, he's
Ultimate
been the
Knicks
most
fan.
interesting thing about the Knicks in my lifetime. That's about the only, if you ask me about the Knicks most of my life, I don't think I could name you a single player. Um,
Mhm.
you know, and I would just say Spike Lee, because that's just how that
Yeah.
franchise unfortunately has been. Um, but one thing about the Knicks, though, there's this guy. What's his name? He's got this haircut that I just can't let go while we're
On the
talking about the
Knicks?
Knicks. He's got this haircut that I just
A guy
cannot.
currently on the Knicks?
Reggie Bullock. He made a
Reggie
great.
Bullock.
He's a good player. He made
Solid player.
a great play at the end of they playing the other night. I'm blanking on it now. They almost get. Oh no, that's a different game. I'm blanking on it, but he made a great play, fought around a screen, and intercepted a pass. And if he hadn't intercepted this pass, they would have had a pretty good chance of making a shot and taking away another,
Mhm. I
tough
think I know the
loss
player
at
you're
the end of
talking
a
about.
game there.
Yeah.
I can't. I'd have to look
Didn't
up
he get
who
like
they
mobbed
played
by his
with.
teammates after that steal or something?
Yeah, no, it was a great play because he gave up a, he- uh, a jump ball.
Hmm.
Wait, who were they playing? I'm looking at their games from the past couple days now, and I can't even find it. I think it was the Magic. Yeah, that's what it was. The Magic. Yeah. He gave up a jump. Anyways, he gave up a jump ball,
Hmm.
and he even said he just hustled back on defense twice as hard because he felt, because they've had some tough losses late here. And it was nice to see them all go crazy about that. But man, that
Yeah.
haircut is just he's got like two individual dreads coming off of either side of his head, and it's just like one hangs in front of his forehead and the other one hangs in the back. And it just I've never seen anybody with a haircut like that, and every time I watch him run up and down the court, I just can't ignore it. And that's why I remember him
He's a
so
good player.
specifically. He's a great player, yeah.
He's a good player.
I just
I
can't
don't
let
think
that
he'll get.
slide though.
I don't know. I don't think he'll get moved. I think he's a good player for the Knicks.
No,
But
I just we're talking about the Knicks, and I just couldn't. My
yeah,
brain just went there.
a couple other players. LaMarcus Aldridge and the Spurs. They already know that Aldridge is done playing for the Spurs. Whether he gets traded or bought out, uh, well, that remains to be seen. Aaron Gordon also on the Magic. He's been linked to a lot of different rumors. I've seen probably the most popular team I've seen interested in him is the Timberwolves. And the Timberwolves also potentially interested in John Collins on Atlanta, but the Hawks have gotten hot recently, so we shall see. NBA trade deadline coming on up. One last topic before we close out, or actually two quick ones into one. The NCAA tournament, March Madness is back, and I'm just so happy. College basketball is back in like a really meaningful way. And before we get to our just devastated brackets. Something that got a lot of attention on social media. Players, I believe, were tweeting this. The men's and women's NCAA tournaments that are going on. Today's Saturday, so it's day 2 of March Madness for the men's and day 1 for the women's as they get started, I believe, a day after. But they're both in bubbles. I believe the men's bubbles are in areas around Indianapolis. And I believe the women's is somewhere in Texas, I believe. I don't know exactly where. I think it's in Texas. But basically, pictures were going viral of the weight room that the men's teams had in their like little bubbles. They were all staying at hotels and stuff like that. And it was massive gyms, tons of weights, full weight room. It's what you would expect from a D1 school. And then they showed the women's, and it was like a little
I
rack
didn't
of
even see any
dumbbells.
weights in the picture. I saw like a yoga mat.
It was like there was a
That
table of
was
yoga
about it.
mats. It was
I'm
a
trying to
table of
find pull
yoga
up the
mats,
picture again.
and it was like a single thing of like dumbbells, and I don't think any of them were heavier than 20 or 30 pounds. That's
Yeah.
like that's ridiculous,
No,
right? Like
that's insane. One thing I want to say here is why why don't they use well, I guess they're in different facilities across the country, I guess. So I just answered my own question. Never mind. I was about to say why don't they
yeah,
just use the same weight room? Um
no,
like like why do you have to segregate
no,
weight
no.
rooms? Like are you worried that all the male players are going to I don't know start hitting on them or something? Like that was my thought, but
Well, that's not the case. And also, the NCAA said that they're gonna fix things that that apparently like I think at first they claimed that there wasn't enough space for the women's just because you were right the women's team like the women's bubble they're in a different location and the NCAA said that there were different facilities there wasn't enough space and then there was another video that went viral when another player posted like an obnoxious amount of space in the team's like practice area that could have fit a full gym so
what
hopefully
is
that
this
gets resolved.
food, man? I got you
Hey,
can't stop
hey,
talking about this. So you talk about the
oh my
food. Are
god,
they in prison? I
the
mean,
food
is
is
that
terrible.
what
Oh,
is that? Is that toast? Is that
I
meatloaf?
don't know. It's like the Fire Island thing. Like the women's food. Like and then again, this is going viral. I think today, another pictures of women's and men's disparity in food and in like their like
There's
the
no gravy
regalia
with mashed
and
potatoes.
they
They don't
get
give them
like
gravy. You give them mashed
no.
potatoes and no. Well, I don't know. Maybe this person just doesn't like gravy and they took a picture of their food. But I don't know who
It's
doesn't
just a
put gravy on their
noticeable.
mashed potatoes. So I'm
It's
guessing they
just
didn't
a
have any.
it's a noticeable difference in quality, and it's embarrassing.
Yeah,
And
I
again,
mean, what did they
and for the
think when they were planning out the budgets? Like, oh, nobody's gonna notice. Maybe 30 years ago, nobody would have said anything. But like,
and
I mean, watch the news, dude. Like,
also
what are you
look at the
doing?
stuff on their bed.
Their bed. Oh, the
Look at the
swag.
stuff on their beds too. Like yeah, like the swag that they get, like the hats and the shirts and stuff. You just get so many more in the in
Yeah,
the
there's
men's
like
room.
stickers
Like
and
yeah,
like, is that a board game off to the side? What's that box up in the upper right hand corner of the
yeah. Look,
men's
they
thing?
they
I
they
mean, they got
they need to have equal treatment. That's the bottom
they've
line.
got
Like
like a
there
full
needs to be
towel and
both.
like 10 different soaps. They've got Axe deodorant and Degree deodorant. They got
Yeah,
spray
that's
on
just
deodorant. What do you need spray on deodorant and 3 types of roll on deodorant for in the first place? Um, like, are you going through
yeah.
that much deodorant? They don't have their own deodorant either, but you know, like you said, it's like, I mean, all you have to do is take a picture. You don't have to say any words. You know, you just take a picture
Yep.
and put them next
Picture's
to
worth
each
a
other, and
thousand
it's like,
words.
I just don't understand what they were thinking. Whoever's doing the purchasing and the planning and the budgeting of all this stuff, you know,
Yep.
it's you know, is there different people in charge of the budgets for the women's and the, or was it one group of people who was like, you know what, we're going to spend this much more money on the men's and just hope nobody notices, I guess. Like, what, it just blows my mind how you could be
Yeah.
that out of touch.
When it's that like open and transparent, like when you see it on social media, that's when you're like, oh wow, this is bad. This is a really bad look for the NCAA. That's for
During
sure.
Women's History Month too.
Yeah,
I mean, you could
double
not be
whammy.
more oblivious.
Well, the good thing is that at least we're having the tournament, which we could not say last year. And just real quick before we sign off, my I only put money on one. I made a bunch of brackets this year, Robbie. I don't know about you. How many brackets did you make?
I hit the, I don't know if you could still do them. It started, probably can't, but I just forgot, not gonna lie. I just forgot to make a bracket.
You forgot to make a
I
bracket after
forgot to
March
make a
Madness
bracket.
was 2 years ago.
I was gonna do I was gonna do it with La Tonique and everything. I saw the text and I didn't do it at the time, and then I just didn't go back to the text. Next thing I know,
Well,
Michigan State's losing to UCLA. The tournament's already started, and I'm like, I
well, you
missed it.
might as well you might as well have not made a bracket because Oral Roberts really screwed everyone over. Oral Roberts, that's not a school I'm familiar with until yesterday.
Never heard of
Or,
them.
Oral Roberts, they're like in middle of nowhere. Sorry, Tulsa, Oklahoma is not the middle of nowhere. My apologies to Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're far away from where I am, so they're Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're like 4,300 undergrad. Like they beat Ohio State by 3 in overtime, ruined everyone's bracket, ruined my bracket for my Latinique bracket. I also had Virginia Tech beating Florida. That was bad. I picked the wrong. I picked Purdue and they got upset. I picked North Carolina and they lost. Like my bracket is not doing well at all, Robbie. It's just
What about I mean, this is something worth noting. North Carolina getting smacked by Wisconsin. I mean,
yeah, that's big.
like, they didn't just lose. That's almost 20 points there.
They
85.
got, they got blown. They got blown out.
Yeah, that's bad. I'll tell you what about Oral Roberts though. I am very, anytime Ohio State loses, I mean, they could lose in cricket or ping pong for all I care, and I'd be happy.
Oh man, this is
Sorry,
Michigan.
Avi.
This is
I know you're Ohio State, but
I'm not. Look, I'll tell you what. I'm not really invested in Ohio State basketball as much as I am Ohio State football. But to hear that come from Michigan State, like Ohio State cares way more about Michigan. Um, yeah, and also Oregon State upsetting Tennessee by 14. I got that wrong. I also said that Liberty was going to upset Oklahoma State. That was wrong. I had San Diego State going to the Sweet 16, and Syracuse beat them. Like I did not do well, and You might as well have not made a bracket this year, Robbie. So like, it was bad, but madness is back, and that's really exciting, and I'm really happy.
We
Yeah.
also had North Texas defeat Purdue in overtime. Then another school kind of in the Ohio State's area.
What do you mean area?
Well, it's in Indiana. It's close.
North Texas?
No, Purdue.
Oh yeah, Purdue. Yeah, that was like basically a home court game for them. If you think like it was close compared to North Texas, and that was
Only team in
a
Indiana
close
to
game.
make the tournament.
Really?
Yeah, there was more teams from Oregon and Eastern Washington that made the NCAA tournament than the state of Indiana.
Wow. Indiana's a huge basketball state too.
Yeah, you got Butler, you got Indiana University, you got a bunch of small schools that sometimes they make it.
The Hoosiers.
Yeah, shout out. That's a great movie.
Yeah, that's a great basketball state. That's for sure. So yeah, March Madness is in full swing. That is a and by the time this is out, there will be plenty more upsets. Who knows? Maybe a 1 seed falls. Well, don't press our luck, but we'll see. So again, we want to thank Tell ABQ for platforming us and for sharing us the great viewers of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Again, follow Tonique social media, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the works. Check us out on LinkedIn as well. And again, www.latonique.news. You know how to find us. Closing thoughts, Robbie, and then we'll sign off.
Ndamukong Suh sucks. That's my last closing thought. I'm just gonna go back to it again. You caught me off guard.
Robbie's probably heard about Ndamukong Suh, and we'll see you next time. I Know Your Balls podcast.